Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is Funeral Service Insider from Kates-Boylston. Each episode features conversations about emerging trends and news that affect the death care industry. We talk to people who understand the delicate balance of change in a profession and vocation steeped in tradition. This week, I'm speaking with 2024 Funeral Director of the Year, Jennifer Lindell-Roys. As always, please stay tuned to the end of the episode for the postmortem. In this episode, we'll be talking about Titan Casket's big splash again. Finally, please remember to subscribe wherever you are listening now, or follow along if you're on Apple. You can reach me through the show notes or just email me arusso@kbpublications.com. That is ARUSSO at K like kite, B like boy, publications.com. Here is your 2024 Funeral Director of the Year, Jennifer Lindell-Roys. So I guess the first and most important thing to do is to congratulate you on being named Funeral Director of the Year. Can you tell me a little bit about how you found out about it and what the process was after that?
I was contacted first by Lynette.
And that's Lynette Vivani, who does public relations for Foundation Partners.
And she said, would you be interested in, you've been nominated to be the Funeral Director of the Year. She said there's several people, and then you fill out these different applications, paperwork, telling about yourself, where you work, what you do, how you got into it. You have to get some references, recommendations. And then also I do a lot of outreach. So I got lots of people for there and got all that paperwork together, submitted it. And she said they will go through a process of reading all of the applicants, and then they will set their mind on 4 different people. 3 will be like the runners up, and then there'll be 1 winner. And so I just submitted all my paperwork. Lynette and Patty were Lynette was great. She took all my information. She read it all. She told me she'd be in touch. And it was great. Then several months went by, and then Patty called me.
And that's Patty Martin-Barsky, American Funeral Director's executive editor.
I happened to be off that day, but she called me on my cell phone and she said, I want to congratulate you. We've chosen you as the Funeral Director of the Year for 2024. I was very excited. I told her, oh my gosh. I said, I'm crying. I can't believe this. Because I've been doing this for 38 years. I've given my whole heart to the funeral business, and I've done nothing else.
One of the things that's an advantage of me and my job is that I get to ask people to account for themselves, and no one ever asks me to account for myself. So was it intimidating at all, having to sit down and put your career like on paper to be judged? Did you feel that way at all, or was it more of an exciting thing?
No, it was more of an exciting thing. It was more of telling my story to somebody that really wanted to know about me. I really never thought anything would come about. It was just exciting for me to even be nominated.
Did you discover anything about yourself during the rehash process when you were going through, your past and trying to think of the highlights of your life? Because it's your highlights of your life. It's not even just the highlights of your career. So
the only thing that I can tell you is I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, I've worked and worked and worked and worked. And it's not even, it's a little bit of a regret, but not even a regret, but that I didn't take more of my time for my daughter. I did as much as I could. I was very involved in everything she did, but there are some times where, I couldn't be at a certain ball game or, and those are the times that I just look back and think, oh, darn, but thank goodness that my mom and dad were there and they were there. And if I couldn't have been there.
Well, and there's also this aspect of, it's not that you didn't want to go. It's not like you were using work as an excuse to get out of watching some dumb softball game,
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to your passion and your reliability, I guess, as a funeral director. I want to kind of start right at the beginning because I was a Quincy fan, so we must be right around the same age.
I loved it. It was fascinating. It was very interesting. intriguing.
Can you talk to me about your decision to go into funeral service instead of into pathology?
Because when I was looking into it, to be a forensic pathologist is many, many years of school, and that costs money. And I didn't think I could do that many years in school, and I didn't have any money. My parents didn't have any money. So I did all this investigating when I was in North Carolina it's probably my, I don't know, freshman year, sophomore year. Anyway, and I did some research and I found a Dr. Butts at Chapel Hill, and he was the head forensic pathologist down there. And I called his office and I asked if I could come and just observe, that I wouldn't be in the way, that I just really had this passion that I really wanted to do it. And of course, back then, it wasn't as big of a deal as it would be today. And he said, sure, I would love to have you come. And so my mom and my brother and I got in the car on the weekends on a Saturday and drove down. And I would go in there and watch. And my mom would sit out in the waiting room and read a book. And my brother would be on the bench.
That's great. I didn't know where that they waited for you while you were you were in there.
Yep. My mom read a book.
So everyone was committed to it. It wasn't just you.
Oh, my mom loved that I loved it. And then when I went to school in Miami, I volunteered at the Dade County Medical Examiner, and I did that for many years, and went out on different calls and volunteered there. So I've got my feel for that there, and my interest was fulfilled.
When did you make that leap, though, into to decide to go to Miami-Dade for funeral service as opposed to pathology?
Oh, I first went to Gupton Jones in Georgia, but when I got there, the man told me, and this was when I was, I guess this was when I was first starting, so it's probably just maybe a junior in high school or so. But the guy told me that I would have to probably work at Kmart because women weren't really supposed to be in the funeral business at that time. So then I started looking into more of it, and I picked up the phone and called to Miami and talked to Darwin Gearhart, who was in charge of Miami-Dade, the School of Mortuary Science down there. And he told me, oh, yes, and we also have an arrangement with FIU where you could stay in the dorms, and that would cut on your costs, and you could go to school here, and, you could get a job. And so I was all over it. And then I started just writing and doing resumes to different places to see if I could get a job. And then when I graduated high school, I graduated in May, and I moved down to Miami in January and started working at one of the local funeral homes there, and then started going to school.
There's nothing more scattershot than having to fill out applications and send resumes in snail mail in the 1980s.
I sent out several different resumes, and then my mom and I would get in the car, and she would drive me, and we would drive down, and I would change clothes in the car, and I would go into the different funeral homes to get my resume. And then I came into one funeral home in Hollywood, Riverside, and I came in and talked to the secretary, and then the funeral director came out to see me, and he says, oh, absolutely. He says, we would love to have you. He says, you go down to the main office, which is in Miami Beach, and he said, you fill out an application and they'll hire you. Don't worry about it. And I was hired.
That is absolutely fantastic. And I mean, it's got to be 12 hours from Greensboro to
no, this is
Miami.
Well, see, my grandparents lived 6 months out of the year here in Auburndale. So we came here, and then we just kind of traveled back and forth back down there. So it's 4 hours down there.
What did you find that you liked the most about school, and what did you struggle with the most in school?
What did I like the most? I love the labs. Back then, which is something so totally different than today, for our labs and everything, we had to go to school. We didn't have a computer where we can look at, class online or any of that kind of thing. You had to go to class. Right. But I enjoyed all my labs. The one thing that we had to do is when we had anatomy, we had these plastic bodies in front of us, and all these plastic pieces that, like a puzzle, that would be put in there. And we had to listen to a cassette tape on, where this part went and what this part did, and, how many bones are there, and this tendon went to this one, and this muscle sits on this. And I couldn't imagine doing it. Couldn't imagine doing that today, but I can't imagine some of the people today doing that.
But because today it's done digitally?
Oh, yeah. I have an intern in all of her class. She's done everything on Zoom. I've registered, Kersey's was already a training facility for St. Pete College. So we had to go through a process too because she applied to Gupton Jones in Georgia and she got approved. So she does all of her stuff for there. So we had to get approved to do clinicals and things like that here at Kersey's for her. So she'd get credit.
And so when you had your entire career at Kersey's, is that correct?
I've been here 28 years, but I was in Miami for 10 years, I believe. 10 years. I worked at Riverside, which was a Jewish funeral home. Then they kind of branched off a little bit. They were owned by SCI, and they have several different branches of funeral homes down in that area. So this day I might be at Riverside, and then this day I might be at Jordan Fannin in Fort Lauderdale, and this day I might be someplace else. So I worked at several different ones.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, and when did you end up moving to Kersey's and why?
I came back up here. My daughter was a year old, and my parents lived up here because they had moved here from North Carolina in the interim. And I moved back up here with her because I thought it would be a better environment and better life for us, and I could provide. And Mr. Kersey gave me a job, and he said, I think it'd be a good idea to have a woman in the funeral business. And he played golf with my dad, and so he hired me.
That's great. And so you're already 10 years in. You're an experienced professional now when you got there.
Well, I was doing my internship because I had already done my apprenticeship, so I was doing my internship.
Okay. Only because I'm a little bit lost in time. Let me just tell you what you told me so far. So you started at Kersey's.
You're lost in time. You're lost in time because usually a normal person, it only takes about 4 years. But I wasn't a normal person because I had to work, save money, and take a class. Then I had to work, save money, take a class. Work, save money, take a class. So it took me just a little bit longer than your average. Yeah.
Hey folks, I want to take a second to talk to you about Funeral Service Insider, the newsletter. We are ending 2024 with a big subscription push because we're really proud of the work we're doing and we want more of you to be able to see it. So if you're enjoying this podcast, if you're a podcast listener, I promise you're going to enjoy Funeral Service Insider, the newsletter. So as we bring 2024 to a close, we are offering Funeral Service Insider for $99 for the year. That is $246 off the regular cover price. What makes Funeral Service Insider such a premium product is the fact that we do independent, originally reported news every week. We're out there looking for things that you won't hear about elsewhere or you're unlikely to hear about elsewhere. And if it's something that's going on in the news, we try to find a different angle on it altogether. Every week, we work to make sure that we're delivering what you're paying a premium for. Plus, to round out your reading for the month, you can subscribe to American Funeral Director, the premier magazine of the industry, for just $12. That is $1 an issue. Same thing with American Cemetery and Cremation, which is undergoing a renaissance and is worth reading cover to cover every month for $12. That's $1 an issue. For the two premium magazines, it is $99, which is like a little less than $2 an issue for Funeral Service Insider. We at Kates-Boylston work every day to make each publication worth your time and effort, and we appreciate the support that you already give us. So once again, visit katesboylston.com/holiday or go to the show notes where you can find a link and subscribe to any or all of our funeral industry publications. All right, let's get back into it. And so how long did it take you after you started working professionally to feel like you kind of like had it down, like to be comfortable in your own skin as a funeral director?
Oh no, it happened early on. I loved it from the get-go.
Were you at Kersey's when it was taken over by Foundation Partners?
Yes.
And what was that process like? Because I know it can be a little nerve-wracking when your main guy isn't going to be the main guy anymore.
When I was first hired here, it was Mr. Kersey, and that's the older Mr. Kersey. Then his son David and Mary, his daughter, took it over and bought it from him. And then they sold it in 2001 to Keystone. And then when Keystone was having their issues and problems, then it went from there to SCI for about a year. And then SCI, then eventually they worked out some of the people worked out all of their kinks, and it became Foundation Partners.
Was it ever a distraction, or was it something that was just kind of in the background? Like, how involved were you in these transactions?
I was here for the families. We're here for the families, not for, I let them take care of the business part. I'm here for my families and to help them get through their difficult time.
Along the way, you started to get involved in the community.
I'm super involved. I'm on 3 different chambers of commerce. I'm involved with the Junior League of Winter Haven, which is a women's organization. I've been involved in my daughter's, I have a stepson too, but in my daughter's schooling, I've always been involved. I've been involved in PTA. I've been involved with her chorus, her ensemble, his theater. I've always been involved in anything in the school. I've made friends through there. I've gone and given talks about funeral business and funeral industry and women in the funeral industry to different schools. I've done just a lot of community. For here, we do a couple of community outreaches. One of them is pastor appreciation lunch that we do for all the pastors to show them that we appreciate them. We do a Christmas remembrance program, and that's where we have several pastors come and we have a service because Christmas is a hard time for everybody. And it's even double hard when you've lost somebody. So we try to help them make it through and let them know that we're here. Anything we can do. We have these pastors come in, we have a couple Christmas carols, and then we give them an ornament for their loved one. It's on our Christmas tree, and we'll give it to them when the service is over with. I do a business expo, which we have in March or April, and it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger every year. This last year we had, I believe it was 86 different tables and vendors with information for anybody that's 55 and over. So they have information on grief, they have information on pre-arrangements, they have information on monuments, markers, flowers. I mean, anything you can possibly think of that could help a person.
Can you tell me about like how students have reacted to your presentations?
They enjoy it. One time when I did speak to a class, and there was one kid that was really interested in it. He had so many good questions. He wanted to know all about the cremation and what happens, and the embalming and what happens. And I usually try to take different props with me so that the kids can actually see, touch, and feel different instruments that we do use. And he really was very interested. He's kind of kept in touch with me a little bit and said that he was very interested. I think he's graduating this year. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it takes him, because I told him I would help him if he needed, me to help him with some school, or he needed me to, speak to somebody, I'd be more than happy to do that. But the kids are very, very interested, very inquisitive.
And I guess you don't have any trouble getting interns then either, because you're so open to it. You haven't told anybody that they would be better off at Kmart, I guess.
No, I haven't. There's some that just aren't made for it, because you can see that they'll smell something or whatever, and they just turn green, and we might have to change a little bit, or look at something else, or try to work through it. I guess what I'm trying to say is they just quit altogether and just say no, and that's it. I never hear from them.
Are you happier now as a manager, or do you not get to do as much funeral directing as you wish you could do? What's that like?
I still do funeral directing. I still do embalming. There's a little bit more meetings than I thought, but it comes with what it is. I've worked it out. My team is excellent. My team is supportive and just really understanding of, hey, I got to do this, or I have to, get on this call. And they're right there to chip in if I need. We work very close together.
And what was your biggest fear about going into management, and how did that play out?
I guess my biggest fear was I saw previously other managers that have had to get on meetings every day and just spend the whole day on calls all day long. And then they had all these reports to do, and they had to turn all these in on certain times. And I mean, it was just paperwork after paperwork after paperwork. And I just thought, that's not me. I want to meet my families. I want to be with my families, and help them. But it hasn't been that way.
Oh, that is fantastic. And that is pretty much all I have for you, unless you have something for me. Is there something I should have asked and didn't, or something that you thought you'd have the opportunity to say, but I didn't provide it?
No, I don't think so.
Very well. Well, thank you so much for your time. And once again, congratulations on being named the Funeral Director of the Year for 2024.
Thank you.
Funeral Service Insider, the podcast, is a Kates-Boylston production. It was written and edited by me, Tony Russo. Every week I ask you, and every week some of you do, so every week I'm going to continue to ask you, please subscribe wherever you're listening now, or follow if you're on Apple. We do have a YouTube channel where, in addition to doing the weekly In Case You Missed It video episodes, these audio episodes are posted as well. I know some people like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, and so we're there, so you know. Make sure to check in the show notes if you'd like to get in touch with me. I would love to hear from you. I'm happy to take suggestions, comments, questions. If you have anything you'd like read on the air, please send it along. And now for the postmortem. A couple months back, I spoke with the folks at Titan Caskets after they released their Hyper Casket, the one inspired by the Cybertruck. And I just wanted to ask them, if they were serious and what was going on, because every time I saw them on television, I saw them on television, but every time I saw one of their ads, I didn't even see the ad. I just saw stories about the ads. And I wondered, if it was all sizzle and no steak, that kind of thing. And I point blank asked them, and they were very honest with me about it. They said that instead of having salesmen going door to door trying to get funeral homes to buy their casket, they started a direct-to-consumer route. And over the years, that has not only paid off, but they are increasingly getting funeral homes as customers who just offer Titan Caskets as funeral homes. And I mentioned they have their little Morty the Mortician, or Morty the Casket plushie toy that I bought one for Christmas. I'm just fascinated by their success because they're doing a lot of things that people would think are inappropriate. They're maybe being flashy. I don't know, but they're getting the attention they deserve, and as a result, their business is growing. The reason I bring it up is because this week they were one of 6 companies set apart by Ad Age as companies to watch in 2025 because they've done such a good job at their marketing. Let me tell you the other 5. Calvin Klein, Crocs, Ferrari, IMAX, and Unilever. If you don't know Unilever, pick up something. If it's a chemical in your house, Unilever made it. And next to all of these monster brands with incredible budgets, we have a small casket company that is worth taking notice of. It's time to sit up and take notice that Titan is being successful by doing what a lot of funeral companies won't or can't or choose not to do. They are but they've developed their own pre-need side. They have developed their own funeral planning aspect of their website, and they've partnered with companies like Alix or Alex, ALIX, to do estate planning. So they're a serious company, but they're having fun. And I think that's what attracts it to me, because I try to do some serious reporting, but I'm also having fun. But anyway, link in the show notes to the Ad Age release, and maybe look for a feature from me on alt marketing in 2025. The reason that they were even on my radar is because I shared the story about the Coffin Cafe in Japan. So there are people who are really shaking up the way they talk about funeral service. If you want to be one of them, I don't see any good reason not to be. But more on that in the new year. For now, have a great week, and we will check in with you next time